I'm making a huge folder out of these two cardboard pieces to put my K-pop posters in it. I measured how big I wanted the poster folder to be and then I traced the design on it. I cut it out with the help of my X-Acto knife and my tiny cutting mat. And here is how the two cardboard pieces look side by side. And now I'm going to use duct tape to put them together. I was really afraid to do this because you can't remove the tape once you put it down. But I just did it on both sides and I left a little gap between the boards so that it creates a little fold in between them. So after I put the duct tape on, I decided that I'm going to paint this. So I gessoed it with some clear gesso because that's the only gesso that I have, and it stayed flat, which is awesome. It didn't bend, so that's great. And now I'm going to paint it with some acrylic paint, and this tube is probably going to be empty by the end of this because this thing is huge. So wish me good luck. I successfully painted the entire folder white, and I have sketched out all the designs that I want to put onto the folder so I can finally start painting this. I've been painting my folder map and I thought maybe I should film some of this. So I'm doing this square and it's going to be the first TXT album. I taped off the parts of the T that needed to be yellow with some painter's tape and then I can paint it. Then I did the same things for the white parts of the T. For the blue part I thought, oh, I can just freehand this. But as it turns out, I cannot freehand this at all. And also the blue was a little bit too dark for my taste, so I made it lighter and I taped off the T, and that way I could fill it in completely without any problems. And after some touch-ups, here is what it looks like. For the next square, I'm going to be using this carbon paper to trace the design of the stars of the TXT album The Dream Chapter Magic. If you trace your design while the carbon paper is underneath it, it will transfer it to the page beneath it, which is really helpful, and I'm going to be using it a lot for the next couple squares. After using the carbon paper, I could start painting, and yes, I could have used masking tape to get straight lines, but I thought this was easier than trying to cut out all those little pieces, so this is what I did. And after the stars, it is time to do the green, and yes, I know my green doesn't exactly match the green of the album, but I got it as close as I could, and I'm still really happy with it. And now that it's dry, it is time for the most satisfying part, which is peeling off the tape and revealing the final design. The next square will be BTS Love Yourself Answer cover art. I started off with the background color, which is a gradient from orange to pink to purple to blue, and I'm not very good at gradients yet, so I'm sorry for that. It is time for the most difficult part, outlining the heart with a white Posca pen. I've sketched the design on it beforehand with a pencil. And ta-da! Here it is! Now I'm going to be drawing the BTS Young Forever balloon that's on the cover, and I'm using carbon paper again to get the balloon from my sketch paper onto my cardboard. I'm going to be using Posca pens to color it. The colors don't exactly match, but I'm okay with that. Painting all the squares did take a long time, but it was so worth it. And here is how the folder is coming along right now. Next, I'm painting the BTS Persona album. I have version 2, so that is what I'm painting. And to be honest, this one was quite simple. I'm using transfer paper again to get the logo on there. I traced the design on a piece of paper first, straight from the album. And now I'm using a white Posca pen again to outline it. And ta-da! And it is time to paint Dynamite. First was getting the letters onto the cardboard again with the help of transfer paper. The lines that you get with the transfer paper are harsh, so I raised them a bit to make the lines lighter. The letters were difficult to paint even with Posca pens because they are even lines that you have to recreate, and getting the same thickness everywhere can be a challenge. So Poscas were the best option for me, and paint would have been too difficult for me, so that's why I did it this way. And here is how it looks up close. The next TXT album is the Dream Chapter Eternity. And I'm starting off with the dark purple shapes. My colors aren't as vibrant as the original, but it's fine. Next is a light purple for the background. Painting the symbol was nerve-wracking. I'm doing also white on where the green is supposed to go, so that the green will pop more later. And for that I will be using neon green. And peeling the tape will always be so satisfying to do. For the next square, I'm painting BTS MOTS 7, and this one is the most difficult one so far. And I know the 7 isn't centered, but it was too late when I realized it. Oops! There were so many different shades of blue in this. I used all the Posca pens I own which had the right colors for it, and for the others I mixed up a lot of paint to get this right. And yay, I'm finally finished with this one. And here is how the folder looks so far. Now is another cover with the gradient, which I'm still not good at, and that is BTS The Most Beautiful Moments in Life Part 2. And it starts off with a gradient from blue to white to grey. Then I drew on the butterflies and painted them by doing a stippling motion. Then I'm tracing the text onto the cardboard again. The last step is painting the text white. I used both Poscas and acrylic paint to get the text to stand out from the background. So making this square was a wild ride. I started off by doing the background color in this flashy kind of color. It's supposed to be pink, but I made it flash, and I only realized it after that I had done the entire background color. So I had to restart it immediately with a better color because I was staring at it and I hated it so much. So I did the background color again. There we go, and now I'm going to start on the black of the T. Here we go, and next is coloring all the squares. But the tape that I had used didn't work very well, so I had to clean up a lot after it. And here it is, finished! With this next square, I'm honoring the queen herself, Spring Day. She is obviously getting a square of her own. I'm inspired by the iconic scene where the shoes hang from the tree. And this was so much fun to do. It was the first square where I actually experimented a bit and tried new things. Like I painted a small gradient on the shoes, and this was the first square where I took artistic liberties with it, and I really loved it. So I really love the end result of this one. This next square took me a month to make, mostly because I had exams and so I worked slowly on it, but also because it was the most difficult square of them all. So it definitely challenged me in my art skills. And that resulted in me hating clouds right now. Like, why were there so many clouds to paint? But painting the bridge thingy was very fun to do. And painting the members was even more fun to do. And here it is. It's not perfect, but I love it. And now the final square. I've chosen to paint TXT's Fight or Escape album and to skip the Freeze one because that one was just too difficult for me to paint. I used a lot of painter's tape to help me paint straight lines, and it didn't always work. So I free-handed the background. It went well, but just slowly. This is the last square of this side, and I really love doing this poster folder, and I'm so happy with how this square turned out and just how the folder overall turned out, so I hope you like it too. Here is the finished poster folder. I really loved doing this. This is one of my favorite projects and I really loved how every single square looked. I am so happy with the finished result, but this is not yet a working poster folder. There are some steps that I still need to do. And first is using this acrylic varnish. It's a satin one, and I don't know why I filmed this because this is acrylic paint and it doesn't do the cool thing like oil paint does, but it still helps to protect the painting, so that was an important step to do. Next was lining up my posters into the folder, the biggest ones, so that I could see where I could make my holes so that the poster would stay together with an elastic. So I'm just lining them up, and then I'm taking a pencil and marking where I want the elastic to go. And I'm also doing it on the other side. And next I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and puncture a hole into the cardboard and make it as tiny as possible, and then I can make it bigger if the elastic won't go through. And here you can see the tiny hole for the elastic. Sorry, it's a little bit out of frame, but I just pushed the elastic through the tiny hole, made a little knot in it so that it won't fall through again, and then I'm going to take the other side of the elastic and measure how long that the elastic needs to be so that it will be pulled tight onto the folder. And now I am tightening the other knot, making sure that the elastic is tight enough so that the poster folder won't come too loose, and then I will repeat this to the other side. And now comes the fun part, which is laying all my posters into the folder and seeing them all together. And I'm so happy that I did this. Every single one fits perfectly, and I'm really happy with this poster folder, and I'm so glad that all my posters fit. And here is the finished piece. I am super happy with it. I really loved how this looked, but I still have another side to paint. This is still empty, so let me know what you think I should do with it. I would love to see your comments.